All right, so let's get started on news site 5. So up until now, our news site has just been entirely, it hasn't been interactive in any way. It's been entirely, essentially, a bunch of different articles that we can access, and we can search for things and everything like that, but we still can't actually update anything. So we're going to add the ability to add articles, and we're also going to add a login to our page. At this point, we're just going to be adding the UI, the UI element to the login. We're not doing the functionality. So before we get into that, I'd like to talk about the HTTP methods, the 4 most common. Who remembers what those are?
Get, post, put, delete.
Yep, get, post, put, and delete are the most common ones. Thank you. And get, let's go through them one by one. What does get normally do? What is the purpose of get, I should say?
Like pulls information from the site or application to your computer?
Exactly. So get is literally getting information, getting data from a server and posting it to putting it onto your own thing. And that's what we've been doing up until now. How about post? What is the purpose of a post request?
To send data to a server.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's to send data to a server specifically in order to create new records. And that's what we're going to be doing today, to create new articles. And then there's put, which is also sometimes called patch. There's subtle differences, but they more or less do the same thing. And what is that?
Update information that's already in the database.
Yep, so that's for editing stuff that's already there. And then finally, delete. It's pretty self-explanatory. It deletes stuff. So yeah, so we've been making GET requests with fetch for a while. So now we're going to be making POST requests. We kind of have an example right here. So in this example, they've created an article object. So we have a title, a byline, and an abstract. We make a fetch request to HTTP localhost /articles the way we normally do. But the difference is between a GET request and a POST request is the second argument. So the first argument is the URL. The second argument is an object. And that object typically has 3 parts to it. It has 3 keys: headers, a method, and a body. And remember, the purpose of the headers is to, tell the server some data it might need to know in order to accept this. Most commonly, you'll be telling it what content type to expect. So you're saying, I am sending you up JSON data. The method says, yeah, this is a POST request, treat it as such. And then the body is what information we're actually doing. And whenever we make an API request, we always have to stringify that request, because you can't send an object through an HTTP request. It has to be turned into a string. So JSON.stringify accomplishes that for us. And then afterwards, we can string along a .then at the end of it, just like we would any other GET request. Is this all looking familiar so far? All right, so let's get news site 5 set up. So I'm going to open this up. Get rid of all this. All right, so it says here that we can copy and paste the entire SRC director from news site 4 and paste it into news site 5. That's convenient. So let's see here. Here's SRC in my news site 4. I've already run an npm install. It does say we should run npm run update tests. So we can do that. I'm assuming that worked. So I'm going to do an npm run start. Make sure there's no errors, not yet. Just being a little slow. Okay, here we go. Just going to check that looks like my links here work. And if I search for Nostrum, all right, so it looks like all my functionality is intact. All right, so it does mention here that the tests are extremely strict. So in the case we decide to start styling using React Strap, which I have, the test will fail. So I'm not going to worry too much about the tests. But I'll run them anyway because I know that that also has something for our new API method that we're going to be running. No, in the wrong folder. Try that again. All right, so I'm going to try to just get the API tests now. All right, so we have one failed test, which is now we've added add article, which now says does not work. So in this case, we're going to have to be doing some fetching. I'm going to quit out of this and clear it. So I'm going to, first off, I just want to make sure that I can post to to the server. So I want to set up a post request. So I'm going to open up, and actually I'm not going to do it there. I'm going to do it right in here. That makes more sense. So I'm going to create an article object. I'm going to give it a title called test, byline test, an abstract, keyboard smashing. Next, I'm going to set up a fetch request. So I'm going to fetch to http://localhost 3001/API/articles. I'm going to set up some headers. Content type is going to be application JSON. Next, we're going to set the method to be post. And then for the body, we're going to make this JSON.stringify on our article object. And then I'm going to set up a .then to get our response. And I'm going to get response.json. And then another .then to console with that JSON to console.log it. All right, so our response, as we can see here, is it's just the article. The way we know it worked is because it has a created date and an ID. We didn't make that. That's automatically generated by our API. And if I scroll down here, it's not there yet. But if I refresh the page, there it is now. So it looks like we can in fact post to our we can post to our server without seemingly without any issues. The question is that we need to make sure that when we do that, it's going to actually refresh the page automatically. And I also want to see what happens if I give it incomplete data. So if I give it, for example, if I edit this so it doesn't have a title anymore. So if I do this now, let's see what happens. So we got an error 422, unprocessable entity. And the response we got has an error with the status code and the name and a message, which says the article instance is not valid, details, title. Does it say any more than that, or is it just title? Title can't be blank. So this is what happens if we give it a bad request. And we're going to have to be able to account for both versions of this, whether we get a success or a failure. All right. Any questions about how we've posted to our server? Okay. In that case, I'm going to open up our articles API.js file here. And we're going to create a new function that we're going to call, let's see, what is the name of the function they want to call it? Add article. And it's going to, let's see what it says. It accepts a single parameter, article object. And we essentially just have to do exactly what we did earlier. We'd say, let response equal await fetch http:// localhost 3001/API/articles. And then we can set up our headers. And I don't think we really need to change anything from when we did that in the console. So we're going to be content type application/JSON. Method is still going to be post. And our body is just going to be json.stringify with our article object. All right, and then we can say, our new article is going to be, so we could say let new article equal await response.json. Then we can return our new article like so. So we can try running our test now, see if this passes. All right, I'm going to, again, filter just to get the API ones. Whoops, hit the wrong button. Okay, we still failed our test. So we're going to have to figure out exactly what we did wrong here. Articles API.default at article is not a function. What does anyone notice? Did anyone notice what I forgot to do?
Export it. I know, because I forget that shit every time.
Yep. Gotta export it, otherwise it doesn't exist. All right, let's try running it again. Okay, so looks like it still fails. Still says add article is not a function. Well, that's not great. What did I do differently than I did here? Interesting. I'm going to quit out of this and just run it from the beginning again, see if anything changes, and if not, I'm not going to worry about it too much because the main thing I want to see is that it works at this point. And if the test is not showing us what we need to see, well, that's not really going to help us. Yeah, still can't find the function for some reason. All right, problems for another time. If any of you, when you're doing this yourself, find out what you need to do in order to make sure that it can actually find that function, let me know, because I just want to get it working. So let's take a look at release 1. The add article page will be used to display a form that will allow users to submit an article. So we can create a route and the page. So let's do that right now. Where's app.js? There you are. Let's make a route exact. The path is going to equal /add article. Didn't need to do that. And we'll call our component add article page, which at the moment does not exist. And we'll set up an import for this, even though, again, it doesn't exist yet. Now I'm going to add our add article page. So we import React from React. Should we make this a functional component or a class-based component? Any thoughts?
Functional.
All right. So in order to do that, we're going to have to say it's not going to be accepting props. We have a return statement. Put a div there, so there's returning something. And let's check to see if our React app is broken or not. All right, so if I go to localhost 3000 /add article, so it's a valid route. There's just nothing there yet. All right. So let's see what it says it needs. Sorry, 1 second. Sneeze, I think. Pardon me. It also says that we should add a link to the nav component that points to this page. So let's do that. So we could add this to our sections, or I could just say after we create links, I'll just add one more here. So let's see, how did we do it up there? Was it a B tag? And inside of that, we put a link to equals / add article. And then we'll just say add a new article. Okay, it's not showing up. Let's see if we're getting any errors. No errors. I check out my components. Interesting. Let's see what happens if I just put this somewhere else. Well, that's odd. Okay, we're getting something here that says nav item is defined but never used. That's not really, about this. That's very weird. We can always put it above the nav bar. Should be showing up somewhere. Okay, something's happening here. All right, that's just saying nav items, unhandled error for post request. I'm going to try restarting my server. Yeah, I'm not sure why this wouldn't be showing up at all. Even if I just do something like, should be able to just put an H1 here and just say, maybe this is something on how the whole navbar thing works. All right. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about this right now because I want to get to the important thing, which is creating a new form. So again, I'm having some weird stuff happening, but I'm not going to try. I'm going to focus on the add article page instead. All right, so we need to create a form. And it'll say right here that we can use the React Bootstrap components to create these form elements, and they have a demo up here. I've already opened it. So there's form, form group, form control, and control label. You can see, so it just puts it inside of a regular form tag, but then you have form groups and form controls. And they have another example down here. So they have something called field groups as well. So let's try this out. So I'm going to import, what was it, form group and form control from React Bootstrap. I'm going to set up a form tag here. So it looks like they put everything inside a form group. So they have a control ID and a validation state. I don't think we need to use that just yet. We may also need control labels, actually. So I'll get that as well. So we can set up a control label. And we could say, so it's going to need a title, a byline, and an abstract. And we can say form control. And so they use type equals text, value equals things like that. So we can say type equals text. We're not going to use state just yet, so let's not worry about it. We can have placeholder. Type in title. And we don't have an onChange function yet, so let's just leave it at that. Then we can set up another one for the byline and another one for the abstract. Let's take a look and see how it turns out. Okay, you're kidding me. No errors. Okay, I'm clearly doing something very wrong here. I'm just not sure what.
No, can you go to your app.js?
Yep. So here's my route going to the add article, and it recognizes that as an add article. We say what component it is, add article page, which I did import.
I was having a similar problem yesterday, but it was because of misspelling. Like the way the React app is set up, you can enter any address and it'll bring you somewhere with just the right.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so it's not
So
recognizing
I was thinking maybe
this
it's a
as a
typo on
valid
the
route.
address, maybe.
I'm sorry?
I was thinking maybe it's a typo on the address, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it looks okay.
Can you just try something? Just move that to the top.
This one?
Yeah, just move it above the slash. I wonder if it sounds stupid, but I've seen this one time before.
Yeah, worth a shot.
Nope.
Yeah, it's only recognizing these 3 routes.
Maybe you start and stop the server again.
Yeah, try that.
I've had weird stuff with that too.
And I know in Django, if you add new files that weren't there before you started, it won't notice them until you stop and start again. But if they're already there and you change them, it will refresh, unless it's a template.
Yeah, they're usually React is more, well, reactive.
Are you in news site 4 or 5 in your code?
Good question. I thought I was in news site 5.
Looks like the route in the app.js right underneath says news site 4 at the top of that window.
Oh, weird. Oh, okay. Okay.
That makes
Oh,
more
boy.
sense.
That explains a lot. Oh boy. All right, one sec. I may have to do some copy pasting to fix this. Yep. Okay. Give me 1 second, everybody. Thank you for catching that. Oh, geez. All right. So
No, while you're working that, yesterday I kept on going to section slash like world instead of sections slash world. And because you basically for some reason you can go to any address and it'll React will give you something. Is there some way to turn that off so that only
named routes. Probably. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, though.
okay.
This will probably help us to pass our test as well. Oh, man. That's embarrassing.
It wasn't a semicolon though.
True.
Those ones always made me mad.
Sure. And then go to app.js. All right, and we should be able to update our app nav as well. This is new site 4. Okay. App nav. Add article. Add new article. Okay. Come on. Yes. Okay. All right. Good. It's actually working now. We've got our fields here. We have this link to take us to the new article page. And while we've done this, I'm also going to run those test suites one more time just to see if that actually can find it now. Now, if I check for API, let's see if any of those fail. Okay, so it failed again. All right, so we have a problem, but at least it's confined the function. So it says .catch throw new error called failed. So it says something went wrong. Doesn't really tell us what. Let's take a look at the actual test and see what's maybe it's may happening here. All right, here's the add article. So request body, request.calls, expect JSON parse to equal article object, equal true, done. It just says call failed. All right, it doesn't really tell us what went wrong. So let's see if we can fix that. So if I console.log, oops, wrong thing. If I console.log our new article, we should be able to see the new article if it's working correctly. Okay, we got something here called success true, which is, so it did work, but it's not exactly what we thought it would be by the look of it. Expect JSON.OK to equal true. So it says expect JSON.parse request body to equal that article object. So looks like what we're returning is not what I thought we were returning. We're just getting a success message and we're not getting the new article. I don't really know how we can fix that though, because that's happening on the server's end, not on ours. Well, for now, I'm gonna say again, if we're getting success true, that means it's working well enough that we can actually just keep on going. All right, so now that we've dealt with all this kerfuffle, anyone have any questions about what we've done so far? Okay, so we still need to make a submit button so that we can, when we're done typing things in, it can actually, actually work. So let's see, how did they do a submit button here? You go down, 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 down. Looks like it's just a button. So I think we're still gonna need to import button here. And then I can just say button type equals submit. Submit. All right, so I should be able to type stuff in here, hit submit. Nothing happens. It does refresh the page though. So now we're going to actually have to have an event handler here to actually, do stuff when we submit. So let's make a new function. We can call this one handle form submit. Let's make sure it takes an event as an argument. And we can event.prevent default. And let's console.log event.target so we can actually see what's actually, what's actually happening here. And we can actually add the onSubmit instead of to our button, we can actually add it to our form instead. So I could say onSubmit equals this dot handle form submit. Oh, right, we're not using this because we're in a functional component. We can just say handle form submit. There we go. I'm gonna open up my inspector, look at the console, and see what happens when I hit the submit button. So we get our form. With the div, we got our labels, inputs, and our button. And just to make sure we're not refreshing the page, yep, so now it still doesn't refresh the page because we prevented the default behavior. All right, so that does that part. Now we actually need to make sure that we can actually use this to do something interesting. But before we even do any of that, what do we need to do before we actually make an API request? Because our API request needs something, right? It needs an article object. So before we actually call on it, we'll need to assemble that article object. And we've got these inputs that we need to deal with. And one thing we can do is we can actually, event.target has something called event.target.elements. So I'm going to do that again and hit submit. And I've got something called an HTML form controls collection, which, as we can see here, has our 3 inputs and our button. And it skips over the labels entirely. So using this array, or this array-like object, we can get all of our input like so. So we could do something like, let article object, and we can say that our abstract or title is going to be event.target.elements0.value. Our byline is going to be event.target.elements1.value. And our abstract, I misspelled byline. It's going to be event.target.elements2.value. Does everyone see how this works?
Is there any way to name those rather than using indices?
Sorry, name them instead of using what? Indices?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, is there any way to give it a label of some sort?
Yeah, one thing we could do is we could give each of them an ID. So we could say ID equals title input.
Then would you use get element by ID?
Yep.
To get that?
Yeah, so in that case, we would use get element by ID. So it would be document.getElement by ID. What did I call it? Title input. So that'd be the other way to do it. But, again, this is more a matter of preference than anything else. So if you'd rather use IDs so you can get those directly from the document, or if you want to use event.target.elements, there's no wrong way to do it, really. I suppose this way would be more robust in that if you change the order of things, it would still function well. So you don't have to worry about changing the indices if we switch these around for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't like magic numbers.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so now that we have these, we need to actually call on our articles API to actually use it. So I can say import API functions from /API /articles API.js. So we're going to need to make sure that this is an asynchronous function. So we could say, let response equal await API functions dot add article. And we're passing in the article object. And for now, let's just console.log the response to make sure it works. So if I type in all this and hit submit. So console.log twice because, oh yeah, because I already have that in my articles API. So it looks like it was a success. And it does in fact give us our new object despite what our test is saying. I'm gonna get rid of that console.log while I'm here. All right, and let's try it again if we don't type in the form at all. All right, so we get that same error here. And if we go to our main thing, we shouldn't get a blank article in there, hopefully. So we've got this nonsense thing here, but we don't have our thing where we didn't type in anything at all. And there it is. All right, so we are partly successful. We were able to submit a new thing, and it doesn't work if we submit something wrong. But obviously that's not very user-friendly. We want to make sure that the user knows when something is submitted correctly and when something is submitted incorrectly. So we can kind of see right here. So it says, we want to show a success message when the article is submitted. So let's figure out how we can accomplish this. And it says right here, but our solution will likely involve using setState, or in this case, using a hook, and setting some sort of indicator within state that says that the form was submitted. All right, so we can do that. So we could say const submitted and set submitted equals use state, and we'll set the default to false. So then we could say something like set submitted to true. And again, I will just take a look at this and make sure it's still, we actually can take a look at the state. All right, so here's our add article page. Here's our state, which is set to false. If I submit something, state gets updated to true. All right, so now we have a true-false thing saying whether or not something has been submitted. What can we do to show that something actually has been submitted in our actual UI, though? We could have some kind of ternary operator, right? Maybe something down here saying if submitted. We can either show something like or else just an empty string or null, something like that. So if I, again, type something in here, hit submit, it says right here, successfully submitted. Pretty cool, right? One thing I may also want to do is I may want to clear all of these. So I could make a function to call them like, clear inputs. And actually, I'll take that as like, it'll take a list of an input list as an argument. We can just say for input in input list. Input dot value equals blank string. And then we can say we're going to have a clear inputs using event.target.elements. Let's see if that works. Uh-oh, input is not defined. All right, so again, I'm going to try to submit something. Uh-oh, looks like that didn't work. Can I read property elements of null? Interesting. Because we just use event.target.elements up here. I wonder if we have to do that like before we set state or something. All right, can I create property value on string 0? All right, so it looks like I have some assumptions here about what I could do that didn't really work the way I thought they would. Because if I do console.log, before I do this, console.log input, I thought I would get an HTML element, but maybe I'm getting something else. Ah, I'm getting the index. Whoops. So I could do a something like, something like this. I always get that for in. I guess I could just keep it the way it was and just know, now that I know that the index, that this argument was the index, then I could say input list index.value. All right, one more time. All right, so
Is
our
there
sub-
maybe on the form element itself, is there maybe a way you can clear the whole form since all the fields are part of the form?
That's a good point. There probably is. If I do like, form clear in JavaScript, I wonder if there's something that automatically does that. Oh, look, there's something called form reset. Oh man, that's a lot easier.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, like the reset button. Yeah, I thought there was something like that.
All right, so we can just get rid of all of that and then just go event.target.reset. I completely forgot that existed. Just goes to show you put so much thought into something, and then as soon as you do it wrong, right, can't do that here for whatever reason. All right, one more time. All right, so we got a error 422, but we did clear the form. All right. That was a lot of time for something that was turned out to be very simple. All right, so there is a problem with how I've done this so far, right? Anyone notice what it is?
I noticed if you don't put everything in, like title, byline, abstract, like if you just miss one, will it still say successfully submitted?
Yep. it says that no matter what, because all I just said was change it to successfully submitted when that happens. We don't have any error handling yet. So I want to try something real quick. I want to say, let's console.log our response again. If we have, if we do it wrong. So we submit, here's our thing. We have something called an error. So it should only have an error if that happens. So maybe we'd want to say,
Well, wouldn't you want to validate the form before you even try submitting it?
Mhm.
And then once you validate the form itself, like all the fields are filled in,
Yeah.
then you can submit it. It'll, why tax the back end with bogus form inputs?
yeah, that's something else we can do as well. I wonder if there's something that we can, that's like kind of built in that says, HTML form validation. I wonder if there's something that does that automatically. So this is something that's on W3 schools. So this is
Oh
more
yeah,
of
min length, I think, is a thing on our fields.
I'm sorry, say that again? Oh.
I think there's a min length attribute for your, yeah.
Yeah, let's take a look at HTML input attributes, see what they have here. So there's disabled, something called size, which is the width. So that's max length. There's also min and max. So the minimum and maximum values for an input field. So if I can do min, so that's a quantity between that. I'm not sure if that works for like length of a string.
Yeah, I think there's a min length as well as a max length.
Oh, there's something here called required. Let's see what that says. Specifies that an input field must be filled out before submitting the form. Oh, well, that's pretty nice. Let's see how we'd add that to a form control. We do something like search for required. Horizontal forms, form control static. Not seeing that here. I'm going to try React, just Googling that React Bootstrap required field, see if there's something there that automatically. So let's see what this says. So this is all, that's not for the actual inputs here. Doesn't look like, as far as I can tell, that this is something that that may not be built in. Okay, let's hear. Here's something here. Bootstrap scopes the valid, invalid styles to parent that was validated, usually applied to the form. Otherwise, any required field with that value shows up as invalid on a load page. Okay, so it looks like this isn't the same thing we used. They used form.control required. So I wonder if we can just do, the same thing here. All right, so far not broken. If I try to hit submit like this, oh, nice. All right, so yeah, so what you just mentioned is something called, it's like, it's the difference between front-end validation versus server-side validation. And yeah, there are two ways of doing that. This is a pretty simple way because you can just use the required and it won't let you submit at all. And just for argument's sake, if we didn't have that, we'd have something like, if response.error, and then we would have some other error handling here. But we can also just use required fields and that works out just as well. All right, what questions do you have about the forms and how we submit them? This all makes sense so far? Okay, so we have one more requirement release here, so let's get through that and then we'll be finished. So it says we'll want to create a new page. By now we know the routine. Component should be named login page and the route should load this component should be /login. It should also display a form. With this form, there should be 2 text inputs, one for an email and one for a password. And there should also be a submit button. All right, so let's get that. We can do that right away. So import login page from ./pages/loginpage.js. Create a route. Exact path equals login. Component equals login page. And then we can create our login page here. Login page.js. Import React from React. Function login page. We don't need any props. Export default login page. So I'm going to just make sure that this component actually loads this time without just assuming that it did. All right, so we did load the login page component this time. So it should display a form. Within this form, there should be 2 text inputs, one for an email, one for a password, and a submit button. So we can, do the same thing we did here. So we can get our form group, form control, control label, and button. Is it control label? Yep. And button from React Bootstrap. Get a form here and a form group. So they mentioned that we can use something called, they have something here about how to create a password field. So it looks like you can just do input type equals password. Again, this is using something else. So we could probably just use their input thing here instead, I suppose. Input and label. Not sure what the difference is between a label and a control label. Not going to worry about it. So you can say label is going to be email. And our input is going to be type equals text. Then we can have our label for our password. Input. It's just type equals password. And then we can have a button. Type equals submit. You can just call this login. Input is not exported from React Bootstrap. Okay. Oh, that's React Strap. That's why. Wait. All right, let's try that again. Do it the way we did it here. Form control and control label.
What's the difference between
Good question. I'm not entirely sure. I know they're similar, but not exactly the same.
Are they independent of each other? Like there's two different libraries that do similar things, or is one dependent on the other?
What was the question? What's the difference between React Bootstrap and React Strap?
Right.
Yeah, they're two independent. React Bootstrap is technically the actual React Bootstrap library, and React Strap is just like another. They're both independent of one another.
Oh, okay. So they're two different things to go about the same thing.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm also going to make sure both of these are required, just like last time.
And you said the React Strap is the official React one, not the third party.
React Bootstrap is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, React Bootstrap is the official one. Also, I think form control might have a type equal to email. Let's see if that actually does anything. Not sure. So I can do, noah@codeplatoon.org. I type in a password. It does all the dots for me. I hit login. Right now, nothing happens. I don't want to save that password. It's not real. All right, and it says here, once we have the UI complete, attach an event listener to the forms on submit. We're just going to console log the values in the email and password fields. So we're not going to worry about how to handle logins yet. We just want to have that form available. So on login, event.prevent default. And we can console.log, event.target.elements. So we can get a look at what actually gets put in there. And then we'll add an on submit here to on login. So now if I submit this, I should be able to see the form at least, and then we can get the values from there. So I've got that. And if I just want to get the values, I could say, again, if I'm just doing it this way, one way of doing it. You don't have to do it with the indices if you don't prefer that. Oh, and that's what the email type does. It actually says you need an @ there, otherwise it doesn't work. Yep, so right here I've got my email and my password. Very secure. All right, what questions do you have about this login form? All right, well, in that case, that is our lecture for today. Yeah, your goal for today is to do News Site 5 yourself. So again, make sure you're following the directions. And if you're using React Strap or React Bootstrap, make sure you're consistent there. and we will be around if you need help. I'm going to stop recording.